Hi, Kay. How are you? This is Sam. I'm just gonna create you a short video explaining to you what are we doing. I'm gonna try to explain as best as I can, in the simplest terms, what is Danta and what are we doing. Okay. So first thing and foremost, Danta, it's an AI agent lab, right? So I will start with the definition of this because I think it's easier to understand why we started doing this in a simple way. So AI, in the sense of artificial intelligence, as you might know now, then we have agent as in giving software, you know, decision making power, you know, based on a situation, and then lab because we run multiple experiments, right? So we have created our first one, which is Maestro, which we're going to talk to you in a while. But we have created others based on vision, you know. So, for example, identification of objects based on a context, sound recognition, face recognition, video editing, all those things using AI, for example. We're going to put other products. So that's what's Danta. Danta Labs is an AI agent lab. That means that every product we do has an AI component, has artificial intelligence embedded on them, has an agentic component, which is that it can take decisions on its own and modify based on a specific experience. And lastly, that we run experiments, we make some changes, and we run them again. So that is what Danta is, right? So let's focus only me on this one that is the Maestro. Maestro, which is our core platform that powers all the rest that go behind us. Maestro was born out of a necessity that we saw in the market. Back when we were in Colombia, we saw that many companies there were actually trying to implement AI, but didn't know where to start, right? So, in a traditional company, and a specific set of processes and automations they need to do themselves, right? So let's say, for example, sales has to do lead prospecting and has to have the meetings. It has to do customer support after they close a deal. And in marketing, they have to administer campaigns. They have to actually, host events. They need to add partnerships, and then you start adding them with every single different departments. You start realizing that they have their own subset of stuff they need to do, right? So given that every one of them has to do things, right, their problems are hermetic. They're hermetic to one another. So for example, if the sales department has a problem based on something, yes, there might be some protocols to interact with it, but it is not the job of legal to solve all the problems from sales, etc., etc. When the new services started adding a third one, yeah, let's call this one, I'm going to put it purple, IT, the information layer, the information became easier, right? Because now we have a general architecture where every sort of tool that the other departments were using were just in a single structure place where they can access to it. So for example, I had my CRM to manage clients. I had my drive to have all the necessary information. I have my RP software for doing the inventory. I had my logistics software for tracking orders, my invoices, right? My financial system, my invoices. So I had everything under a central infrastructure. Yeah. So I had everything under one roof, right? With the access of AI, these specific departments started seeing that they wanted to create tools for their own. But what happened was that they usually did it either with little to no supervision of IT. Some companies, in the other hand, they did actually create some pilots and stuff. But what essentially happened was, for example, if a salesman here, wanted to create a chatbot, right, to respond to clients faster, this chatbot was alone and was not connected to the central infrastructure, right? So if, for example, a customer just started sending malicious activity, information, or exposed company policies. For example, just some use cases that happen in the real world, right? When IT started looking into this, they realized that they needed a company policy to actually handle these certain developments, right? But if all the departments, right, in the businesses started like creating their own tools, and they started asking IT to manage them all, given that they were just using different tools, different systems, different everything, and they were all there, IT as the entity that needed to supervise was having a big trouble doing that, right? Because given that this software can use a specific set of technology that this one doesn't, or otherwise, then you basically had multiple systems with multiple layers, with multiple infrastructure, with multiple information flowing from one place to another, where IT could not control. So that was a huge problem. That is called shadow AI. When employees or departments start using technology that is not authorized by IT, potentially breaking company policy, and then the same aspect exposing companies' data and companies' secrets. And so IT has been trying repeatedly to find a solution where they can give the ability to self-manage to the departments to a degree, right? So for example, if I need a new software and it's easier to install them, right, and they don't need to have a manual overwatch over it, then let sales have a chatbot that is compliant, that is easier to use, right? But the more services you start adding, because people start getting excited about the new capacities that AI has, the difficult it becomes to observe what it does, and the difficult it is to assess the risk properly. And then all these new tools start popping outside of the main infrastructure. So they start operating outside the main infrastructure and start having themselves their own data, their own protocols, their own way of using, their own way of tapping into information for specific users. And if, for example, if it's an open product outside of the organization, it's much complicated. Some of them might try to tap into the main data, right? But this connection, IT cannot control how is it done, right? Unless, of course, they do a ticket and stuff, but that can take months or days to even months, depending on the type of configuration they need. And sometimes even this configuration might not be compatible with the existing infrastructure of the company. So how do we solve this problem without limiting the access to innovation? And the short answer is by actually creating a specific space for AI deployment that is easy to set up. But not only that, that also users within the companies can create their own tools for their specific needs, as we discussed in our previous meeting. When we, for example, if someone goes to us and says, hey, I need to create a system to visualize car parts, since I've never been in the automotive industry, or I don't know the software or the quirks and perks and shortcuts, I might have more time understanding than if I was already a part of the team and I could actually describe it. And that's why we decided to create Maestro, because with Maestro, right, we create a parallel space that is an AI optimized AI infrastructure. So everything in this particular space is tailored to be easy to configure, easy to connect with one another, and also share data throughout the different programs, so it's easier to visualize what is being shared, how it's being shared, and why is it being used. So that means that all these tools that are outside, right, I can just basically take this and just place them inside here. So no longer I have multiple applications running while I just have a unitary place where IT can supervise them, where IT has all the control there is to it. And then he can also control how that information is being shared with one another. These systems can be connected with one another in some cases, others don't, right? They all share the same memory layer, or they even have memory on their own. So that means that they can have local or general memory. So the context of the information they're providing is shared through all the entities in the single place. And the best part is, for example, if I want to tap on this data, right, I can configure safe and secure pipelines that IT approves. And that way I can only control one specific, or maybe two or three, depending on the situation, but it's observable, it's understanding in what areas of my central infrastructure they're tapping in, and I'm isolating the new developments in a way that it doesn't affect my main infrastructure. And for example, if I need information from this data set, the CRM, I can actually use this connector here, share it with the overall network, and that network can just use it in a very specific, tailored way that is confined to a specific site. And that means that I can no longer limit the information. And the other component we have, which is one of our key sellouts, is that we have a builder created for it. Why are we creating our own builder? Because by creating the builder and by creating the memory and the computing power, meaning everything that makes the thing run, we're able to control how the products are made and how they are interact with one another. We have much more control. And this builder is easy to configure, meaning that internal teams can use it themselves to create the necessary tooling without actually relying on external parties or IT. Even if they did, right? Even if they hire an IT consultant, or even if they actually tapped into IT, given that they're doing it in an isolated framework with some specific permissions, they don't put at risk the main infrastructure. And that can basically lead to faster times to product, right? So people can use the products right away, and a much more secure, much more compliant environment for the protection of the information and the data. There's always an observability layer, meaning that IT can see how those connections are interacting with one another. And if, for example, a new connection interacts, if they want to connect, for example, to the internet, or if they, for example, they want to block it because they think it's dangerous. But then they control everything that has been built under one roof. Another key advantage is that given that all the tools are done in a single place, they are all compatible. Port or export different agents either to my system or to the third one. So for example, if I want to use Google, or I want to use Stripe or Instacart, or I want to use a bank or whatever, I can still do it in an easy way that is not compromising my main infrastructure. That those connections are easy to use. So someone that is working in sales or in finance or in operations can manually tell what are they looking for. The system will try to fetch the best tools for it. So for example, he decides that this one, and this one are the best options for it. And then you just simply connect them with one another, and the user can have an interface ready to be used for the specific case. So that is what we're doing. Now, what have we built with this? We have built multiple agents that go and range. We had finance, so an invoicing agent. We had a quote automation agent that is already deployed. We're creating now a customer support agent. We created stock market evaluator that was created using our hackathon. It was using healthcare cases because basically people could import one of the projects they already did. So they created health things. They created tutors, mentors, We also do the for education as a specific way to tailor specific lessons. So all of these cases that we can apply using the same technology. That means that we are agnostic to the industry. We can be applied in whatever specific case. The only thing that we need to understand is how the connections are made, what information do we have in hand, and specifically how that information interacts with the central infrastructure. We are still in early stages, of course. We've been building this from March, but so far we have showcased that this approach not only is safer for companies, but it's also easier for them to ship products that are actually going to be used by the stakeholders. And we are always there to support their journey, no matter how complicated it is. We have worked with companies, we have created the agents for them, but we can also guide them and teach them how they can create them themselves if needed.